Imagine checking your phone tomorrow morning and seeing a guaranteed cash deposit, unconditional, every single month.
Right, the ultimate dream.
Yeah, but now, imagine that same money is backed by literal nuclear fusion, but it can be instantly frozen by an algorithm if you buy the wrong thing.
I mean, it sounds like a collision between a utopian dream and, like, a dystopian sci-fi novel.
It really does.
But the reality is the architecture for this kind of society is already being debated at the highest levels.
And that is exactly what we are getting into today. We have a massive stack of sources for this deep dive.
A really dense stack.
Yeah, we're looking at comprehensive policy analysis on global universal basic income experiments, decades of historical economic data, and an incredibly dense visionary framework paper titled The Third Civilizational OS, the Digital Yen and Programmable Polity.
It is quite the title.
It is. And our mission today, to figure out why UBI hasn't taken over the world yet, what the moral roadblocks really are, and how a radical new concept combining programmable digital currency, nuclear energy, and ancient governance structures might completely redefine what money and society actually look like. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to really understand how we get to programmable money and nuclear fusion, we have to start with the foundational premise, right?
Right.
We need to look at what actually happens when you test universal basic income in the real world. Because the theory of handing out unconditional cash often collides with human behavior in ways that, policymakers just don't anticipate.
Okay, let's make sure we're defining pure UBI first, just so we are all on the same page.
Good idea.
It's unconditional, goes to individuals rather than households, it's paid in cash, and it's regular.
Exactly.
A lot of people in the sources point to the massive experiment Finland ran from 2017 to 2018. They gave 2,000 unemployed people 560 euros a month.
Yeah, and the results of that Finnish experiment were wildly polarizing depending on what metric you prioritized.
How so?
Well, if you were looking at well-being, it was a home run. They saw a massive drop in stress, significant improvements in mental health, and a measurable increase in overall trust in societal institutions.
Okay, that sounds great.
It does. But if you were looking at employment outcomes, the results were incredibly flat.
Yeah, looking through the sources, they saw a tiny, almost negligible bump in employment.
Very tiny.
Which honestly made me want to push back on the premise of the experiment itself. I mean, why would a government expect that giving people free money would encourage them to go out and work more?
Right. It seems counterintuitive.
It feels like playing a board game where moving forward actually costs you points.
That board game analogy gets right to the heart of what economists call the unemployment trap.
The unemployment trap.
Yeah. In a traditional means-tested welfare system, if you are unemployed and you manage to find a low-paying part-time job, your welfare benefits are immediately slashed. Oh, I see. So in many cases, after factoring in commuting costs and taxes, you literally end up poorer by taking the job.
So you actively lose points for moving forward.
You do. And UBI was theorized as the fix for that specific trap.
Because it's unconditional.
Exactly. Because the basic income is unconditional, every dollar you earn on top of it is a dollar you keep.
Makes sense.
The Finnish government hoped this baseline security would encourage people to take on gig work or start small businesses without the terrifying risk of losing their primary safety net.
But the reality of the labor market proved far too entrenched for one policy to unravel overnight.
Exactly. But the sources don't just look at wealthy European nations.
Right. There is also a massive 12-year experiment in Kenya run by an organization called Give Directly.
That Kenyan experiment is crucial. It really challenges the most stubborn, preconceived notions about direct cash transfers.
What do they find?
Well, over a decade of data showed marked improvements in nutrition, and notably a profound boost in female empowerment and household decision-making.
Wow. And it also completely dispelled the classic fears you hear on the news, right? The idea that people would just stop working entirely or blow the cash on alcohol and vices.
Right. The data shows that just didn't happen.
It just didn't.
It didn't. And similar positive trends in health and schooling emerged in smaller municipal pilots in the U.S., like in Stockton, California, or Chicago.
But then you look at the Canadian experiment, specifically the one in Ontario.
Yeah, that one is a tough story.
And you run headfirst into the real Achilles heel of pure UBI.
Which is that it's politically fragile.
Very. The Ontario experiment was killed early because the government changed hands, the political winds shifted, and suddenly the sheer cost of universal distribution became the only narrative that mattered.
And that political fragility is exactly why we see policymakers often pivoting away from pure UBI toward what are called refundable tax credits.
Like what?
Think of the earned income tax credit in the US or recent proposals by the Democratic Party for the people in Japan.
Okay, the DPFP.
Right. These aren't universal baselines. They specifically target low-income workers and are explicitly designed to incentivize labor.
So if you don't clock in, you don't get the full benefit.
Exactly. So policymakers are trying to thread the needle.
But this raises a glaring contradiction in the sources for me.
What's that?
If UBI genuinely solves the unemployment trap, and if longitudinal data shows it improves mental health and nutrition without causing mass laziness, why is there still such visceral resistance to it?
Because the resistance isn't rooted in the data.
It's not.
No, it's rooted in a bizarre political alliance and an incredibly deep-seated civilizational clash over morality.
Okay, the strange bedfellows dynamic in these papers blew my mind.
It's pretty wild.
You have left-wing progressives like Bernie Sanders and right-wing libertarian Silicon Valley tech billionaires like Sam Altman and Elon Musk, all advocating for UBI.
Right.
But they want it for entirely conflicting reasons. And, we're just laying out their arguments impartially here based on the text.
Absolutely. It is a fascinating and highly unstable coalition. So the progressive left wants UBI built on top of the existing welfare state.
Okay.
They view it as a mechanism to give workers the power to say no to exploitative jobs.
So they want to give labor more negotiating leverage.
Exactly. While the Silicon Valley tech giants and libertarian economists want UBI to completely replace the existing welfare state.
Wow. Completely replace it.
Yeah. They look at the massive, inefficient bureaucracies managing food stamps and housing assistance, and they just want to burn the whole administrative apparatus down.
Just clear it out.
Right. They want to replace it with an efficient algorithm that deposits cash directly and then just let the free market sort out the rest.
Yet, whether they're approaching it from the left or the right, both factions of the pro-UBI coalition end up crashing into the exact same barrier.
The moral wall.
Which really comes down to the free rider problem, doesn't it? I mean, the fear of inflation is real, but the emotional core of the resistance is the idea that it is fundamentally wrong for someone to get paid for doing nothing.
That belief isn't just a modern political talking point. It is an ancient religious and cultural substrate.
Give me an example.
Think about the Protestant, specifically Calvinist, view of work as a divine calling, or Catholic subsidiarity.
Hold on, subsidiarity. That's the idea that issues should be handled at the lowest, most local level possible, right?
Right.
Like down to the individual.
Yes. And in that Catholic framework, work isn't just about paying bills. It's the mechanism that perfects the human person and allows them to contribute to their immediate community.
Okay, that's interesting.
And we see this mirrored across the globe.
Yeah.
The sources mention Judaism's ladders of charity,
Right.
where the absolute highest form of charity isn't handing someone a coin, it's giving them a job so they can become self-sufficient.
And Islamic zakat mandates charity, but strictly maintains that those with a sound body and mind must labor.
Exactly.
Same with the East Asian Confucian ethic, which is deeply rooted in the idea of, he who does not work shall not eat.
Yes.
Across almost all major traditions, your labor is inextricably tied to your moral worth.
Right.
And I get that. Judging people for not working makes total sense historically. But how does this hold up when algorithms and robotics are doing all the work?
That is the big question.
Because the sources cite a 2024 IMF estimate that AI is on track to displace 40% of professional knowledge work. 40%.
This is the pivot point of the whole debate.
Okay.
The sources frame this as the transition from act-based to membership-based moral judgment.
Good. Break that down for me.
Historically, society used an act-based judgment, evaluating you on what you actually do, your individual choices.
Like, did you go to work today?
Exactly. But when structural forces displace massive populations, society shifts to membership-based judgment. Are you in the working class or the non-working class?
And historically, we've judged that non-working category very harshly.
Where?
But judging someone because they belong to the non-working class falls apart entirely when nearly half the population is forced into that category by technological progress.
Precisely.
It's no longer a moral failing, it's a structural reality.
Exactly. So traditional governments are paralyzed. They are stuck behind this moral wall, terrified of the optics of distributing quote-unquote free money to perceived free riders.
Even as AI actively eats the job market.
Right. So if traditional governments are paralyzed by this moral guilt around work, who steps into the power vacuum?
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley.
They aren't waiting for politicians to figure this out. They are trying to bypass the state entirely.
Which brings a deeply transhumanist philosophy into play.
Oh, this part was wild.
Tech leaders are proposing that as AI generates unprecedented wealth, that wealth should be captured and distributed directly to citizens via digital tokens.
Completely sidestepping traditional taxation.
Exactly.
Like Sam Altman's WorldCoin project.
Yeah.
They literally propose using iris scans to verify human identity so they can drop crypto tokens directly into your digital wallet just for existing.
Philosophically, they are relying on a distinction famously made by thinkers like Hannah Arendt between labor and work.
Okay, what's the difference there?
Labor is the forced daily biological grind you do just to survive.
Right.
The tech argument is that labor should be handed over entirely to machines. Work, or action, on the other hand, is creative, self-realizing, and voluntary.
So that domain is kept by humans.
Exactly.
Well, it sounds beautiful on a whiteboard until you hit what the sources call the Sodom and Gomorrah fear.
Yeah, traditionalists are terrified of this.
They fear that a society entirely freed from the necessity of labor won't suddenly blossom into a utopia of artists and philosophers.
Right. They fear it will descend into pure decadence, addiction, and apathy without the organizing principle of daily labor.
And here is where the tech world solution actually kind of terrifies me.
Why is that?
Wait a minute. Silicon Valley claims they want total freedom from the government bureaucracy, right?
Right.
But to prevent people from misbehaving with their unconditional basic income, they are proposing programmable money, digital currency, embedded with smart contracts.
Money that knows exactly what you're buying.
Yes, money that can dynamically restrict you from buying harmful goods, or apply negative interest rates to your wallet to punish you if you hoard it, instead of stimulating the economy.
Or literally lock your funds until you pass a mandatory health check.
Exactly. They aren't getting rid of authoritarianism. They're just building an algorithmic god directly into the money itself.
What's fascinating here is that you've hit on the core critique outlined in the framework paper.
Really?
Yeah. The tech utopian vision promises radical freedom, but in practice, it centralizes identity infrastructure in the hands of private corporations.
Which creates a technological world government that enforces a rigid universal morality.
And it completely ignores local realities. An algorithmic god treats a rural village in Kenya the exact same way it treats a frontier town in Alaska or a neighborhood in Tokyo.
It's a one-size-fits-all code written by a handful of engineers in California,
resulting in massive unaccountable power. So we're caught between Western governments stuck behind rigid moral panics and the threat of algorithmic authoritarianism from tech billionaires. Is there a third option?
The sources say yes, and they call it the third civilizational OS.
Which is just a fascinating concept.
It really is. They propose a visionary hybrid architecture, contrasting Western and Eastern algorithmic logic.
Because in the West, algorithms, much like laws, are explicit, rigid, and rule-based.
It's binary, allowed or not allowed.
Exactly. But the Eastern approach, specifically the Japanese approach highlighted in the text, relies heavily on relational context.
Okay, tell me about that.
There's a Japanese concept called santaku.
Santaku.
Right, which basically means anticipating needs and adjusting behavior based on the highly specific context of a situation without needing an explicit rule.
See, I struggled with this part of the reading. You can't just program code to read the room.
It sounds impossible.
Pure rules are too rigid for the AI age, I get that, but pure context lacks transparency. How do you build digital currency on context?
The paper proposes a Japanese model digital polity, a hybrid architecture for a new digital yen.
Okay.
It takes the transparency of Western code and injects it with localized context through 5 specific mechanisms. Let's look at how it handles welfare and taxation first.
Let's do it.
The system utilizes a negative consumption tax combined with programmable progressive taxation.
So instead of a complicated welfare application, the digital currency automatically assesses your economic context at the point of sale.
Exactly.
If you're low income and you tap your phone to buy groceries, the algorithm instantly reimburses the sales tax, effectively lowering the price in real time.
Right.
But if you buy a luxury yacht, the money automatically extracts a massive progressive tax.
And the taxation happens continuously, invisibly in the background. It removes the massive bureaucracies both sides of the political aisle hate.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But if the money is that smart, if it can adjust taxes dynamically, it stands to reason it can analyze other patterns too. The sources mention an auto-criminal transaction lock and external use restrictions.
Yes. If the network detects a localized transaction pattern linked to human trafficking, bribery, or money laundering, the funds are instantly frozen.
Wow.
The money simply refuses to participate in the crime. Furthermore, the currency can be geofenced to become inert if an attempt is made to use it to support a hostile state.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
I know where you're going with this.
The final mechanism is the energy standard regime. We are talking about moving off the gold standard, moving off the fiat standard where money is just backed by trust in a central bank,
Right.
and moving on to a literal nuclear fusion energy standard.
It is a total paradigm shift. In this framework, the currency's value is backed by the physical exergy efficiency and output of fusion reactors. It insulates the nation's monetary policy from external volatility and embeds society's ethical norms into the electromagnetic substrate of the currency.
Wait, back up. Exergy efficiency, electromagnetic substrate.
I know, it's a lot.
We're throwing around some heavy physics terminology here. What does that actually mean for my wallet in plain English?
Well, think about the gold standard. You couldn't print more dollars than the gold you physically had in a vault.
Right.
Exergy is the usable energy in a system. Pegging money to fusion means the currency supply is strictly limited to the actual physical power we can generate to sustain society.
So you literally cannot fake economic growth.
You can't.
You can't just print more money out of thin air because you can't print nuclear fusion out of thin air.
Correct. And when we talk about the electromagnetic substrate, it means that if the currency is just light and data backed by energy, the ethics, the tax rates, the crime locks are coded directly into the physics of the exchange itself.
That's wild.
The morality isn't enforced after the fact by a guy with a badge. It's a condition of the transaction occurring at all.
That is profound. But it brings us to the most terrifying question of this entire deep dive.
If
a system this powerful, money that knows what you're buying, money that taxes you dynamically, money that can literally lock your funds.
Yeah.
Who on earth do you trust to hold the keys?
That is the ultimate question of governance, isn't it? Who writes the algorithm for this third OS? As we discussed, it can't be politicians.
Because they're too partisan and focused on short-term election cycles. They'd just reprogram the money to buy votes.
Exactly.
It can't be central banks because they are too technocratic and lack democratic accountability.
Right.
And it certainly can't be tech bros because that leads to an unaccountable algorithmic god.
So the sources propose a three-layer governance model.
Okay, let's hear it.
Layer one is legislative. Your elected representatives still debate and set the basic ethical parameters of society.
Right, they decide what constitutes a luxury or what qualifies for a subsidy.
Exactly.
That makes sense. You retain democratic intent.
Layer two is judicial review. The Supreme Court has to pre-approve the algorithms for constitutionality before they go live.
Oh, that's smart.
And more importantly, local courts handle bottom-up feedback. If the algorithm creates an unintended side effect, say, it accidentally freezes the funds of a legitimate community, charity local courts catch that bug and mandate a fix.
So if I'm tracking this, it's basically a corporate structure.
How do you mean?
Well, the legislature is the board of directors setting the broader vision. The courts are the QA testers finding the bugs in the code.
That's a great way to put it.
But what is the third layer? The sources call it the silent locus of legitimacy. What does that actually look like in the real world?
The framework argues that the final formal authorization of the algorithm must come from a non-political historical authority.
Like who?
Think of an institution like a constitutional monarch or an ancient registry, an entity that maintains its legitimacy precisely through its structural silence.
So it doesn't make policy.
No,
It doesn't write the code.
never. It makes no policy decisions whatsoever. But it acts as the ultimate uncapturable safeguard.
I see.
Its only job is to formally validate the system, ensuring that the algorithm hasn't been hijacked by a temporary political faction.
To finish the corporate analogy, the silent locus is like the founder who retired, doesn't code anymore, but holds a golden share purely to prevent a hostile takeover.
Exactly. You are completely separating the power to make the rules from the ultimate authority to validate them.
Power without ultimate authority, and authority without daily power.
It's a profoundly stable structure to house a programmable currency.
But of course, any digital system has a fatal physical vulnerability.
Right.
The EMP scenario. A massive solar flare knocks out the power grid, or a cyber attack takes down the network. What happens to your programmable nuclear fusion money then?
The sources address this explicitly. They point to historical precedents like Mahathir Mohamad's actions in Malaysia during the 1997 to 98 financial crisis.
What did he do?
When the digital international financial apparatus fails, the system relies on physical capital controls and direct barter arrangements as a backup.
So you just revert to the physical world.
You do, because the core argument is that the legitimacy of the system outlasts the technological apparatus.
Right. If the society trusts the silent locus in the constitutional structure, they will weather the technological blackout.
Exactly. The operating system survives even if the computers are temporarily down.
Wow. We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started with a seemingly simple debate over UBI, sending people a monthly check to eliminate the unemployment trap and alleviate poverty.
And we had to navigate through the deep moral anxieties of a post-work AI world.
Contrasting the paralysis of traditional governments with the threat of tech billionaires building an unaccountable algorithmic god.
Only to land on this mind-bending concept of a third civilizational OS.
A future where money is pegged to nuclear fusion, programmed to reflect our highest ethical standards, and safeguarded by an ancient, silent authority.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Yeah, where does this leave everyone?
It means that as AI continues to reshape your industry, the very definitions of a job, of money, and of what it means to make a contribution to society are going to change fundamentally.
No question.
You are living through the messy transition from an economy based on human labor to an economy based on algorithmic distribution.
Which leaves me with one final thought. Something that wasn't explicitly debated in the sources, but that I can't shake after reading all of this.
What's that?
If our future money is programmed to enforce our society's best moral intentions, what happens to our right to make mistakes?
Oh, wow.
If you can't financially support a bad habit, or make a poor, messy, inherently human choice because your digital currency simply won't physically let you, are you actually a good person? Or are you just a well-programmed one? Something to think about next time you tap your card.